Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. We are pleased to be joined. When you see this guy on the channel, you know it's sports car time. It's Kobe Lambeth of the Podium Finish, as well as my teammate on Grid Network. I don't know if it's Super Sebring. So obviously some big stuff there. We'll get to the 12 hours of Sebring in just a moment, but let's first touch on the 1,000 miles of Sebring. Of course, it's the 8 hours of Sebring as the World Endurance Championship, or otherwise known as WEC, opens up this weekend as they open up their season. Hi, how's it going, Kobe?
It's going well, Casey. We're really excited for Super Sebring weekend. Is always super exciting whenever this weekend comes around because you get to see the best of the best in sports car racing, two of the most competitive sports car racing championships in the world. I mentioned the FIA World Endurance Championship. Super excited to see for the very first time LMDH machinery going up against LMH machinery. And as we know, Rolex 24 Daytona, we only saw the LMDH cars compete in the GTP class, but we didn't have any hypercars. So this time we're going to see the IMSA GTP cars going up against the Le Mans hypercar. So it's going to be very exciting to see how those cars get along with the balance of performance. And then we have a much smaller LMP2 field in World Endurance Championship as well, but it should be a lot more competitive than what we've seen. And LMP2 is always competitive in this series. GTM got quite a field there. Some interesting driver lineups. Gonna be weird with that GT Pro since it's been around for a very long time, but as times change, it's just how it is. Just overall excited for the World Endurance Championship race and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race as well. It's a great weekend if you're a sports car racing fan.
And it's going to be a great weekend. If that, and you know where to go to get all your sports car coverage, right? You go to Grid Network. So we're going to be having a pre-race show on Friday, right at following the 1,000 miles of Sebring, and we'll recap everything on Sunday during the Grid wrap-up show. We'll also recap everything that happened in Formula One they'll be at Saudi Arabia, and of course the NASCAR Cup Series race at Atlanta on Sunday night. And of course you can always tune in to the Grid Encore show, which I am a part of, along with Ben Schneider, Brandon Crosland, and Joshua Birch, as we recap Xfinity and trucks from Atlanta, as well as F2 from Jeddah. So let's briefly talk about WEC for a minute. Who stands out to you? And we'll touch on the hypercar class a little bit, and obviously we'll get into all of them in just a moment. But really, there's a lot of manufacturers in this field. We got Cadillac and Corvette. We obviously got Ferraris in there. The Penske Porsches. Who stands out to you in the hypercar class?
And it's funny because we were just talking about this team on Grid Tonight, I believe, a few weeks ago. Toyota Gazoo Racing. A lot of people wonder, with the lack of competition they've had since Audi and Porsche pulled out from the LMP1 days. It's basically been a Toyota world. We've just been living in it. Have no major competition, but for the first time in a handful of years, Toyota finally have competition. You just saw those manufacturers. Casey, it's going to be very competitive this year in the hypercar class. And some people wondered, with all these manufacturers coming in, such as Cadillac and Porsche, for Ferrari and more, could Toyota continue to remain on top, or could we potentially see other manufacturers overtake them? And we just finished up the preseason test at Sebring over the last week or so, and in that test session, Toyota with their updated car, they look really good, and Toyota still looking like one of the top teams in the class. So Toyota really stood out to me, and I think they're going to try to prove some doubters wrong. People, it's easy to say, the only reason why Toyota's had success in the last handful of years because they are basically the only ones that's competing against themselves in that number 7 and number 8 Toyota hypercar. But they're going to look to shut up all those doubters with all these manufacturers come in with competitive program that Toyota still wants to go out there and prove, that although we didn't have competition in recent years, we're still the ultimate benchmark going for overall wins in all FIA World Endurance Championship races.
Yeah. What about in LMP2 and also in the GTE AM? Those two classes? Who stands out to you in those two?
Oh wow! Looking at the LMP2 class, it is a little bit smaller than what we've seen in recent years, but it's going to be very, very competitive. There's so many different driver lineups, but one lineup that I'm gonna be looking at that could be really strong is is Prima Racing, and number is 63. Mirko Bortolotti, Danny Kvyat, and Dorian Penn. I think that driver lineup is really going to turn some heads this year. You could basically say it's like a quote unquote almost all pro driver lineup there, because all three of those drivers are extremely fast, and we know Mirko Bortolotti is a Lamborghini factory driver. What's Lamborghini have coming next year? They're going to have an LMDH car that they plan to run in World Endurance Championship and also the IMSA endurance races. So Bortolotti's in that class, to get some more experience in the high downforce prototypes, which is going to be very beneficial when he drives the Lamborghini prototype in 2024. And Danny Kvyat, for a moment, like he was going to try to have a career over here in the United States racing in NASCAR. I guess that didn't really go as planned for him. So now he's racing full time in the World Endurance Championship. I think that would be really good for him. And Dorian Penn, one of the brightest young prospects, one of the young brightest female racers in the world right now. Whenever she jumps into a car, she's extremely fast. I'm really excited to see what she can do in LMP2 this year. And in GTM, got a lot of cars over there. Yeah, so but the one lineup I'm going to be looking at is a number 33 Corvette from Corvette Racing. For the first time in I guess for forever with Corvette Racing, we're going to see them competing in a program class instead of an all pro class. They got Ben Keaton, Nikki Katsbury, and Nico Verone. I think that's going to be a really strong driver lineup. Ben Keaton's really gotten up to speed quite nicely in the Corvette. That doesn't surprise me because Ben Keaton's a really good race car driver. Yeah, it's going to be quite a transition for Corvette, running a program like this. But I still think that they could have a really good year in the GTM category.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Of course, Nico Verone was just on my channel just a few weeks ago after Rolex, so got a chance to talk with him about that. So, yeah, I know he's super excited about this WEC championship, and obviously we're gonna talk about all that. And after this, in our following, as I mentioned, the grid pre-race show for the 12 hours of Sebring after, as we'll also recap the 8 hours of Sebring for the WEC for the World Endurance Championship. Now let's go to the 12 hours of Sebring. Let's I guess we need to start off with the big class and the big news surrounding the GTP class. We haven't seen these guys since the Rolex 24, but a lot has happened since then. Overall, I think the big story is Meyer Shank, and I know we covered it on last week's episode of Grid Tonight. But overall, what are we going to expect from that 60 team this weekend with all the penalties that they've had?
I think the 60 team is going to be extra motivated. I think they're gonna get down to Sebring this weekend, and they're gonna go out there and do what all the other teams are trying to do: go out there and win the race. But I think the 60 team is gonna they're gonna have extra motivation to do it because with that penalty that got handed down, some people are obviously gonna say, oh wow, they cheated. Why didn't they lose the Rolex watch? Why didn't they lose the overall victory in the car to finish second overall? They should be the overall winners instead. There's some of the things that are obviously been said about this situation. And as I said on Grid Tonight, super unfortunate that this has happened with Meyer Shank Racing, because Michael Shank, as we know, he's blue collar guy who's worked really, really hard to get to the point that he's at, and to be able to land it still with Acura, a factory back program. And for this to happen, and for Acura to put out that scathing statement, seemed like they were very, very unhappy, to be caught up in a situation like this. That's very damaging. It makes me wonder what's the relationship going to be like with Meyer Shank Racing and Acura moving forward. So I think Meyer Shank is gonna try to go out there and try to prove to everyone that they're not a bunch of cheaters, that this was just an unfortunate thing that happened, and that they're going to do the best to follow all of the rules moving forward, because that penalty is certainly doesn't cast them in a good light, and Acura as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, it's time to pick the 5 things that we need to watch out for Sebring. But describe this course. What before we get to looking at all the classes, let's talk about just Sebring overall. What are we mostly looking forward? What do you mostly look forward to? What are some of the tough spots you have about that Sebring course?
Hashtag respect the bumps. As I see, Sebring is such a bumpy racetrack. It's like driving on a roller coaster, because those cars are bouncing up and down all the way throughout the track. That's why you see so many teams with brand new cars come to Sebring year in and year out to do endurance testing, because if you come to these bumps of Sebring, and you haven't had any reliability issues with your car before, you'll find something wrong with your car, because this track is, it has such an abrasive surface. It is so rough that something will break. And if you've been following the NASCAR Garage 56 story with the next gen car, they took their car to Sebring as well, because they want to be running at the end of 24 hours of Le Mans later this summer, in the early summer. So coming to Sebring, that allows them to evaluate their own program. And if something's going to break, it's going to break at Sebring, so they'll be able to fix that, so it doesn't break when they go over to circuit. So I don't have any particular areas of the track in general, Casey, but just the fact, you're gonna have to respect the bumps, and especially late at night. Right now, we have a 54 car grid for this year's Mobile 112 hours of Sebring. So traffic is going to come into play, especially if we have a low attrition rate, in that nighttime hours when it's dark. It could get really hectic, especially late in the race, and we might get a late race restart, because that stuff happens in IMSA sometimes.
Yeah, it also happens in WEC too. So we might see a late restart over there as well. So two entertaining races. Also, Mission Pilot Challenge will also be there as well this weekend too. So we'll obviously keep in touch with that as well. All right, let's go to picks. Let's start with LMP2. We always like to save the top class for last. Who do you think takes LMP2?
Oh well, that's a really tough one. Yeah, because LMP2 has some really strong driver lineups, but I'm gonna go with the team that was a part of that very exciting finish in the final lap of the Rolex 24. We had Proton that took the victory, and Kraus Racing. They were so close. I think that they're gonna get redemption from Daytona and get the job done, and look for George Kurtz, Ben Hanley, and Nolan Siegel to get the job done.
Yeah, and by the way, Nolan Siegel will be on my channel this channel next week. So it'll be fun to talk to Nolan after Sebring. So hopefully it'll be after a win. So and also I just recorded an interview today with Daniel Frost, of course, the first ever winner from Indy Next. So that'll be exciting. So check that out when that video goes live. All right, let's go to LMP3. Who do you think wins that?
I think it's going to be the usual suspects. Riley Motorsports. I know they had a major engine problem in the Rolex 24. That's one team you expect to always be in on. I think they bounced back with the win at Sebring.
Yeah, I think it's and that class overall just had a very interesting day at the Rolex 24 Daytona just a couple months ago. So it should be very interesting to see how that plays out. All right, let's go to the two GT classes. GTD Pro, who wins that?
Oh wow, GTD Pro is going to be super competitive once again. Some really strong driver lineups. I know it was an all Mercedes day at Daytona, but I think that is going to be a different manufacturer this time. This may surprise some people, but why not go with the Lamborghini, the Iron Lynx? I'm gonna go with Frank Pereira, Jordan Pepper, and the IndyCar driver Roman Grosjean getting the win at Sebring.
That will be pretty good. So before we pick GTD, we probably should discuss this as well. There was an interesting notification about balance of power that's been up in the conversation the last few weeks, and it looks like it affected a lot of the Porsche teams from the Rolex 24. I know IMSA increased the power of those machines. Kobe, what are your thoughts on all the balance of power news of the last few weeks?
Wow, this has been a really messy situation with the BLP, balance of power, balance of performance situation with Porsche. And when we were on the pre-race show, we're talking about the pace of Porsche from the road test, the practice sessions as well leading up to the race. The Porsches were nowhere. And obviously, teams are gonna, while other manufacturers are gonna accuse someone like Porsche of sandbagging for better performance. But once we got to the race of the Rolex 24, it was perfectly clear that Porsche was not sandbagging. They were trying as hard as they could, but it still wasn't good enough. I know even I made the reference, like we have an additional class. It's the return of the American Le Mans Series GTC category. That was an all-spec Porsche class, and that's basically what it was at Daytona, because the Porsches were just, they were just racing themselves. Like, they could not compete. I remember an onboard with a Porsche racing a Mercedes, going on the bank, and that Mercedes passed them like it was a prototype. And by the time it got to the end of the straightaway, the Mercedes was completely gone. Like, the Porsche had no straight line speed. It could not compete at all at Daytona. And then coming to the Sebring test that they had before this upcoming weekend, Porsche's still not happy with the BOP situation, and it led to some backlash, from some of the drivers, threatening to pull back their program from full season to the Endurance Cup, or some drivers, just wanting to pull out altogether, to try to send a message to them so that they're not doing enough to help Porsche out of all. Hopefully they get this BOP situation figured out. And we all know in sports car, BOP is never ever going to be perfect. It's always going to be, someone's obviously going to benefit from it, and someone's obviously going to get screwed every now and then. But I think IMSA does the best job that it can to try to put on a good show for all of the spectators wherever they're watching the world, and to make sure that every manufacturer has the best possible chance to go out there and compete. And it's just a super, in a really big year for IMSA. It's just really unfortunate, that we even have to talk about this.
Yeah, and also IMSA heard the message loud and clear, and they did increase the balance of power for the Porsches as well. So I think they're going to receive, I think it's going to be up to what they asked for, from what I've heard, up to 40, because it was at 36 from what I understand talking to people. So it should be very interesting to see what that does. But in light of that, let's pick GTD. Who do you got?
Oh well, looking at the entry list for the GTD class, it's really difficult to pick a winner, but I'm gonna go with the number 27, Aston Martin, Roman Daniels, Marcus Sorensen, and Ian James.
Yeah, for sure. It's that Heart of Racing team is obviously going to be pretty tough to beat. And by the way, don't forget to pick a winner. We've got a lot of winners to pick this week, so don't, and of course tune in to Grid Tonight tomorrow, so we can obviously you can discuss all the pick winners that we have as Edward continues his world domination of the pick a winner picks. So we'll see if he continues his reign of terror. Okay, so let's go to GTP now, the top class. Who takes the 12 hours of Sebring overall?
I think we're going to see a prototype from Porsche Penske Motorsport get the overall win. I'm going to go with the number 7, Matt Campbell, Felipe Nasr, Michael Christensen.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick right there. So it's those are some pretty solid picks. I think we're going to see. I agree with you, but I'm going to go with the other Porsche. I'm going to take the number 6 to take the win at them, and then who knows what could happen. We obviously saw the Porsches struggle at Sebring at Daytona last week, actually at the Rolex 24. So we'll have to see. It'll be also interesting to see what BMW can do if they've fixed a lot of the issues that they've had. I'm not sure if we might see the same reliability issues that we saw with the top class here at Sebring. Remember, this is only a 12-hour race, not a 24-hour race. So we'll just have to see what happens there, and that's why we run the races and not talk about them. That'll be fun for sure. But yeah, so tune in after the WEC, after the World Endurance Championship, which is available on YouTube, or I think it's on Motor Trend too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Casey. It's still on Motor Trend On Demand. Unfortunately, I just found out that the Repco Supercars Championship is no longer on there, so I had to move over to SuperView. Yeah, I'm very bummed out about that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Who's gonna watch. Who's watching Supercars now? Our good friend Adam Lemeris. I know he's all into that stuff. So I hope Adam's having some fun with that. So that'll be good stuff there. But for Kobe Lambeth of the Podium Finish and Grid Network, I'm Casey Campbell. We'll talk to you later in the week as we preview the Super Sebring.